Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I've made it out to Warley Place on a fantastic late March day. What a fantastic place this is for the wildflowers. Now I have been here a couple of times before, one with the camera and one without, and the problem that I had last time I was here was completely the wrong time of year. And looking at some of my other friends from my camera club who have been here fairly recently, now is the time to come to capture these spring flowers. So there's loads of daffodils out here and a few other flowers as well, and hopefully I'll be able to capture some of those images today. So what a glorious day it is. Let's go exploring. So with the first composition, what I've got set up is a camera with the 24-105 lens on. I've taken an image at around about sort of 65-70mm, and also one right in at 105 on the trees here. And what I'm specifically doing with my exposure is underexposing, which means that obviously you're going to get a lot more detail of the light, the sunlight, as it's cast onto the sides of the trunks of the trees and then onto the areas and the patches in the foreground as well. Will hopefully work out to be really interesting as a composition. Rather than using the light meter on the back of the camera and making sure that it's sort of spot on and so that the light meter is showing that it's a well exposed image, it's going to be a little bit flat. Trying to underexpose a little bit just adds that little bit more drama to the actual image, and eventually will obviously make it that little bit more interesting to look at, in my opinion. Obviously I may well be completely wrong, and obviously until I get back to the computer I can't normally be 100% sure, but for looking on the back of the camera, that's the kind of images that I really want, is you sort of play around with the exposure and the shutter speed, particularly for the ones that I obviously use out the exposure triangle. And yeah, hopefully that will work out quite well. So settings for the camera is f16, ISO 50 and approximately 1/20th of a second on the shutter speed, and working out really quite nice. So yeah. Also, I think what I'm going to do now is swap over to the lens, to the telephoto lens, just to really zoom in and pick out some of those details with the reach of that lens. For this next composition, swapped over to the long lens on and about 275mm, give or take, picking out two of these trees and work out really nice with that reach of the lens. Yeah, absolutely spot on, I think. Really sort of emphasising the dark and the light areas that I really wanted in the composition, but also picking out some of the details of the flowers as well. So with a composition of the two trees and the lovely daffodils in the foreground, working out to be really quite nice. Same settings as before, f16, ISO 50, 1/20th of a second. Yeah, working out really quite well for this one. Framing up the image though, what I'm making sure that I do, there's a little smaller tree behind one of the larger two trees that I've got as my main subject, and yeah, you can just see that a little bit, so I may well obviously need to have a look at that in post-processing, but yeah, it's working out really quite well, and picking out that detail and using the long lens to capture these images is working out really well. For the next composition, walking along the path here, and got this lovely meandering path through the actual image with this super big old oak tree over to the right hand side of the composition and working out absolutely fantastic. As you can see, I've got the camera on the vertical orientation, swap back over to the 24 to 105 lens, 24mm on the actual lens there, and working out really quite nice. f16, about ISO 50 and 1/10 of a second as the exposure, working out really nicely for this type of image, as you've got that path sort of leading the eye through, and obviously the detail in the tree at the same time as well, working out superb. I've also done a 6-image panoramic for this composition as well, just because I wanted that sort of wider field of view right across the sweep. And when I stitch it together, even though obviously I'm kind of perceiving what it's going to look like when I stitch it together, the path will be sort of over to the left, the oak tree itself with all the sprawling branches will be sort of pretty centre, but this sort of carpet of yellow daffodils will be there as well over to the right hand side, so hopefully will work out really quite well. The other thing that I wanted about a panoramic image, rather than say swapping over to the 17 to 40mm lens and maybe capturing it as a single image, is that obviously stitching all of those files together, you've got a super big file and obviously more data, more detail within it as well. So yeah, I'll be able to pick out a lot more information in it and obviously see all of the colours of the flowers as well. So that will work out really quite well. So next composition, walking around the gardens here, right near to the road now, so apologies about the noise of the traffic, but got a lovely side light of the flowers being lit up here. Now I've got absolutely zero idea about what these flowers are, and I've been, apparently because I've got a camera, I'm a professional looking at taking these flowers, and I've got absolutely zero idea of what they are. To me, it's a pink flower. It's a yellow flower. I kind of know what a daffodil is, so that's all right, but anything apart from that is a little bit lost on me. However, working out really quite nice using the 400mm reach of the lens, f5.6, ISO 50, 200th of a second, working out really quite nice for this image and really sort of blurring out the background as well. Getting the 50mm lens out now and getting down super low to capture some of the lovely light on these daffodils here. Using obviously the extension arm of the tripod as well, working out really quite well to obviously get into this composition. So having the camera, as you can see, in vertical orientation, what I can actually do with that is get the base of the daffodils and then obviously the stalks in the darker background, but then obviously the light coming through the actual trumpets of the daffodils, working out really quite nice. f2.8, ISO 50, and also the shutter speed. There's a few different shutter speeds, I must admit, that I've taken, so I'll put obviously the link in. All of the details of every image that I take is always in the description below. So that concludes my walk here at Warley Place. It's a really lovely time of year to visit with all of those daffodils out and just hearing the wildlife around here, which is quite clearly in abundance. It's absolutely fantastic, and hopefully some of the images have worked out really quite well. I think the key thing for this time of year when you've got lovely glorious sunny days like this is exposed for that on the camera. You set up the camera so obviously you've got the darker areas and you're picking out those spots of light, because that's what my eye was drawn to, and that's what I wanted to try and replicate in some of the images that I've captured today. So yeah, really enjoyed it, and what a fantastic time of year spring is. Getting the warmer weather, which luckily enough this weekend we have. Quite rare to obviously have warm weather in March and April, but make the most of it. But yeah, I've really enjoyed myself coming out here today, and hopefully you've enjoyed coming along with me and looking at the images that I've captured. Thank you everyone for watching. Please make sure you give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't subscribed already, and until next time when I'm back out with my camera, take care.